So now the good news is that if you're a trainee doctor with a disability and you're applying for the GP exams and you have previously failed those exams, if you submit the information that you do have a disability, you can now receive those exams. So what happened was there was a doctor, or should I say a trainee doctor, who did not know she had a disability. It could be any disability, whether it's dyslexia, ADHD, autism, or any condition that you feel might have affected your ability to pass the exam. So she had failed previous exams. She wanted to resit the exam. The RCGP, which is the Royal College of General Practitioners, and that's the ruling body for exams, had now stated that no, you're no longer eligible to sit the exams because you've done the maximum entries for the exam. Now, you've got two different categories of exams. You've got the AKT, the Applied Knowledge Test, which is the theoretical exams, where you have, it could be multiple choice questions, or it could be short answers. Usually it's a maximum of 4 attempts, I think, before August 2023. Now, after August 2023, it's now 6 maximum attempts. So if you failed those 6 attempts, or 4, depending on what year it is, then you're no longer eligible. I would assume that she had 4 maximum attempts because this is August 2023. Then you've got the practical exam, which is the Simulated Consultation Assessment, known as the SCA. So basically, this is more practical and is simulated in the sense that the patients are role-playing, they're not actual patients. You have a series of 12 stations, each lasting 12 minutes, where you're now expected to go through all 12, get their history, examination, and management, usually in the presence of an invigilator. So you need to pass 2 exams to become a GP. So the first exam is usually the AKT, which is the theoretical exam. So I think this GP trainee, had failed the 4 maximum attempts of the AKT. She later found that she had a disability and then now applied to void the exams. The RCGP said, no, you cannot void the exams because we have to be fair to everybody else. However, in the UK, if you have a disability, you fall under the Equality Act. Now, the Equality Act 2010 now states that if you have a physical or mental impairment, so physical impairment could be anything. It could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be asthma, it could be even back pain. It could be, and a mental impairment could range from anxiety, depression, even ADHD can come under mental impairment. So the Equality Act 2010 is if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a long term would be more than 12 months, and adverse effect substantial, and that adverse effect has to be substantial. So we say substantial adverse effects that you're unable to do day-to-day activities. So it has adverse effect on day-to-day activities, and day-to-day activities could be, going up and down the stairs, driving your car, or even going to work. So if you have a disability that fulfills the criteria of the Equality Act, then, if you're at work or whichever establishment you're under, they have to make reasonable adjustments. Reasonable adjustments could mean anything, but your employer has to be able to make those reasonable adjustments. That's why it's called reasonable. So if your employer cannot afford the cost of making those reasonable adjustments, then it's not reasonable. So your employer says, look, I cannot make those reasonable adjustments. For example, if you have a wheelchair and you have to go to work and your employer says, I cannot afford the cost of a ramp to take you into the entrance of the building, then that's not reasonable adjustments. But in application to this exam, a reasonable adjustment would be, increasing the reading time before you sit especially with the practical exam, or even with the theoretical exam, increasing the reading time for each question. So if the AKT is 3 hours or 3 hours, 20 minutes, maybe you might be given an hour extra or 20% extra, especially with dyslexia, you're usually given 20% extra reading time. So you might be given 20% reading time to read every questions for both the theoretical and the practical exam. Also increase up the consultation time. So if it's 12 minutes per station, they might, again, let's put 20% increase for those 12 minutes, whatever 20% is. So that could be another 16 minutes, so 4 minutes extra to make it 16 minutes for each station. And then extra rest breaks. If you've got ADHD, people with ADHD struggle with concentration and focus. So you need extra rest breaks, for the theoretical exam as well as for the practical exam. So those are your examples of reasonable adjustments that you can apply for the exam. And also because if you do not know that you've been disabled before you start the exam, you can actually apply to void all those exams that you failed. which means that it's a clean break. So for example, you can say, okay, I can now do another 4 sets. However, the High Court has changed this. The High Court in the UK has now stated that you can sit the exam as many times as you like. So there's no case of, okay, I only have 4 maximum attempts. So that's what voiding means. Voiding means that, look, forget the fact that you failed 4 times. You can now sit the exam as many times as you like. So there are 2 ways of looking at this. If you're the one with a disability who struggles, this is good news for you. If you're the RCGP, you can argue it is good news as well, because that's more money. You're paying more money to sit those exams. However, the thing here is you went through medical school, 4 or 5 years of medical school, and this was not an issue at medical school. You never applied for disability or never knew. Maybe you struggled through medical school, I don't know, but this was never an issue. And you argue that medical school should be tougher than the AKT or the SCA or whatever they call it these days. Because the AKT is quite straightforward. It's the clinical stuff you do on a day-to-day basis. Whereas with medical school, it was a whole mixed match of topics from, health inequality to psychology to biology, biochemistry. It was a whole mishmash of different subjects. You just never knew what to expect. Whereas with the AKT, you do know what to expect. It's mostly clinical stuff. So why are you struggling now and you did not struggle before? And this was some of the question, not me asking the question. This was the question the RCGP was kind of asking. And this is the question that other doctors are kind of asking as well. So basically, this is the case. So good news for trainee doctors. If you have a disability, you can apply to have it voided. However, it's the quality. Like, how are we going to let all these GPs in or GP trainees in and they don't know how to pass an exam? That's a debate for you lots to answer. Take care.